The resounding success of Donald Trump's bleeding year as the wound of liberty has further sped up Trump proofing in Europe. NATO's and Europe's support to Ukraine remains a race against time with genuine questions. However, this oft discussed theme has overshadowed a series of crucial developments in the maritime theater of the Ukraine war, which has endgame implications. So, let me tell you a little bit about what is this action on the other side of Atlantic. Defying expectations and fighting systemic shortage of ammunition, Ukraine has made the last Russian naval patrol ship retreat from Russia's Black Sea Fleet in Crimea, most likely towards the Sea of Azov. Moscow has been rebasing its maritime deployments, especially all of its combat ready warships, away from Crimea to safer zones to ensure safety of its rapidly depleting maritime capabilities in the Black Sea region, which are downed and damaged by a combination of Ukrainian naval drones and missiles. According to most Western sources, Russia has lost about 40% of its Black Sea fleet. On a different note, this could be an opportunity for Moscow to modernize its fleets if there really is a window for such an undertaking in the middle of this war. The communitization of war effort that a smaller country has exemplified against a mighty neighbor is best reflected in the production deployment of drones, where Kyiv's total annual capacity will soon reach 1 million drones. By comparison, Russia has upped its manufacturing too and is likely to produce around 32,000 drones by 2030. In fact, Andrei Belousov was picked as the new defense minister because of his ambitious drone modernization program for Russia. The Ukraine war is a live laboratory for future wars. Prevalent and ubiquitous use of drones has rendered battlefields quite transparent. And observers are taking snapshots of futuristic trends in integrated defense tech warfare, putting them together coherently for a discernible picture to emerge. From India's perspective, the development, deployment, and performance of different types of multi role FPVs and first ever AI enabled drones in combinations with upgraded missiles, etc., remains to be one of the most interesting facets to take cues from. But first, why exactly is Russia retreating from its undisputed maritime superiority in the Black Sea region, and what does it imply? Now, you will understand this better when I describe the three fronts of Ukraine war. So, this long standing war between Russia and Ukraine has been fought not along one but three fronts: land, sea, and critical infrastructure. Deliberations in Delhi circles are mostly relegated to the land domain and its three main battle axes: in Donetsk around Yarchasiv, in south near Zaporizhia, and in the north in Vovchansk in the Kharkiv region. However, little attention is given to the decisive maritime theatre, which is left to scholarly and technical military analyses in journals and books, and less for public debates. Now, there's also a third front, which is Ukraine's increasing attacks on Russia's reserves and critical infrastructure, and Russia's attacks on Ukraine's power grids and civilian targets, which has received almost no analysis here. That, however, is a matter for another day. Now, coming back, the overarching war of grinding attrition remains unfathomable unless the developments in the maritime theatre and their implications are understood better. Firstly, what makes this theatre a critical theatre for analysis is the factor of Crimea, the famous peninsula located in the Black Sea region jutting out of southern Ukraine. Now, Russia annexed Crimea in 2014 in a quick victory, deploying little green men, some of whom later became the Wagner Group, the brainchild of slain warlord, criminal, and chef Yevgeny Prigozhin. Soon after the victory, President Putin linked the peninsula to mainland Russia via the Kerch Bridge. It is a bridge on the waters of Black Sea, which became symbolic of Putin's power and vision of a resurgent Russia. Soon after Ukraine was able to stave off Russia from a quick victory in 2022 that even US intelligence did not really expect, experts started assessing the utility of making Crimea untenable. I too had argued that it remains impossible for Ukraine to expel every single Russian soldier from its territory in the face of existing asymmetries and mounting ammunition delays. But then making Crimea untenable seemed aspirational and not really achievable. One of the first experts to argue for making Crimea untenable was actually Ben Hodges, who served as commanding general of United States Army Europe. Now, it is true that advances by both Ukraine and Russia have remained sluggish along the front lines. After the scintillating success of Ukraine's first counteroffensive in Kharkiv and Kherson in 2022, the successive counteroffensives amid this intriguing war of narratives has not really yielded any significant results. Now, if the Ukrainian counteroffensives could liberate only a dozen or more villages, the Russians too have actually taken 1 year on an average to liberate, whether it's Bakhmut or Avdiivka. The recent Russian counteroffensive in Kharkiv couldn't take the city or even Vovchansk, even when Ukrainian forces were stretched thin from east to north. This remains true of other regions where the Russian advance remains painfully slow. However, Moscow undoubtedly has an upper hand in the land battle and it's quite undisputed. But Ukraine has gone beyond merely having an upper hand when it comes to the maritime theater by establishing astonishing superiority even without having a proper operational navy. It all began with the downing of Moskva by Neptune missiles, and shortly after that, Ukraine started receiving US and British made Harpoon anti ship missiles and quite smartly adapted those to be launched from land because it did not really possess a warship. One of the reasons behind Ukraine's successes in adapting and downing Russian boats of varying sizes and capabilities is the familiarity that the Ukrainians have with these ships. Prominent Russian cruisers were actually built in the Mykolaiv shipyard in the Soviet Union, which is now in Ukraine. Famous examples are Moskva itself, and the other example is Russia's most prominent aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, both of which were built in Mykolaiv. By the way, Russia only has one. Secondly, the optimal combination of these ingeniously adapted missiles with sea drones, often in combination with Western long range weapons, has worked unexpectedly well for Ukraine, especially in the sea. Now, take this example that there's a country without a navy, and even then they can have resorted to much cheaper and innovative fleet of sea drones that have been used to achieve dominance at sea, and they've been able to subvert the full blockade of Ukrainian ports by Russia in 2022. You may have heard of the Magura V5 drone with a range of 800 kilometers that emits little heat, which makes it difficult for thermal cameras to detect it. And Magura V5 drones have been quite notable. Now, thirdly, Ukraine's success with destroying the prized S 400 air defense systems in Crimea have also landed a blow to Russian efforts to hold on to the peninsula. If you remember, the first news came in 2023, and then in 2024, last month, they were reported again. Now, these successes are not standalone, but they pose significant challenges for resupply of Russian troops in southern Ukraine by disrupting logistics. Equally crucial is the resuming of Ukraine's exports. Now they have almost reached pre war levels through the three greater Odessa ports. Now, in Ukraine, you have greater Odessa ports and you have eastern ports and other ports, and exports from the greater Odessa ports have actually reached pre war levels. And finally, at a logistical level, the innovative drone program has been the most potent solution to make up for the systemic artillery shortage. Now, many of you wonder why Ukraine hasn't lost the war, being undersupplied with ammunition for the last 1.5 years. So, one of the answers that I can give actually come from the effective deployment and development of drones that are far cheaper and yet more precise than artillery shells. Let me now connect this entire scenario to the drone Vimarsh, which is relevant for us. So, the rapid proliferation of lethal flying objects and swarms will revolutionize established dominance of large contractors and government contracts, etc. Traditional weapons programs under different strategic partnership models have taken years and decades to develop. By contrast, drones are cheap and effective, and soon they'll be AI enabled. In my previous column, I had explained why the AI enabled drones are going to be so difficult to track by electronic warfare. Now, it is natural that defense bureaucracy will have to fundamentally change procurement pathways to keep pace with the world of AI and rapidly developing software computing, etc. Now, India must also brace up for the wars of tomorrow with well planned design, procurement, production, and integration of these multi role flying saucers into Indian armed forces at a structural level. Getting right military technical cooperation on multi role drones perhaps could implement the best Kadi Ninda to avenge the life of our soldiers in cowardly attacks from across the LOC. The lessons from the war in Ukraine remain evolving. I'll be back to discuss the key takeaways relevant for India. Stay tuned.